You're listening to Ecto Portal, a journey into the unknown with Anthony Anderson and VERNA Wilson.
I hope that you are seated comfortably, with the light turned down and the curtains drawn.
Somebody there?
Hello, once again, to another journey into the unexplored, the unexplained Ecto Portal. I'm Anthony Anderson, your host, and I'm here with my co-host,
VERNA Wilson.
And today our episode kind of has two layers to it. It is about a haunting or a possession, but there's also another story that followed afterwards, which is equally as interesting. And this is one of Ed and Lorraine Warren's famous cases, demonologists. So let's back up. Now, there was an episode of this particular story. This is Arnie Cheyenne Johnson's story. There was an episode made about his case, his haunting, his possession, I guess is what this one's about, on the TV series A Haunting from the Discovery Channel. This was back, I'd say 2012. There's an episode called Where Demons Dwell. They did a whole episode on it. And essentially, he and his wife Debbie and their son David moved into this new rental property. It was their first real house together, that they weren't living with one of their mothers. And it was a nice sized property, a nice house. They started moving in, and as soon as the first day when they pulled in, started unpacking boxes, the younger son David is a very happy child, very cooperative, well behaved. He went in, and his mother said, "Can you go sweep out the master bedroom?" And he went in there, and he apparently was in there for a few minutes, and he came rushing back out and said, "We have a problem in the bedroom." And the mother's like, "Well, what's going on?" And he's like, "Well, come and see." And he pulled her into the room, and they see that there's a bed still in there. And she's like, "Well, that's odd. I was told there was no furniture in the house whatsoever, and I have to set up my master bedroom bed." So they were going to have the landlord come and take that out. And she said, "We'll just sweep around it." And he said, "No, I saw there was a man in here." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "There's an old man in here, and he was mean, and he hit me, and he didn't want me in here." So the kid was kind of freaked out. He ran outside, and they ran out and talked to him. And he said, "I'm not going back in there." And he said, "Okay, you stay outside and play." So they continue on cleaning and moving in some more of their stuff, and the kid is freaked out again. He goes in and he sees him again. He sees this old man. The old man's talking to him and says, the kid says, the old man says, "If you can't move in here, or he's going to hurt you." And they're like, "Well, what are you talking about? It's your imagination. There's nothing here. There's nothing bad here." And the kid's like, "No, he said if we move in here, he's going to hurt us." So they go to their friend's house for the night, and the kid he sees the old man at their friend's house in the middle of the night, or not in the middle of the night, but they're having dinners, talking and stuff, and he stands up and he goes, "We can't go back there. If we go back there, he's going to hurt us bad." And they're like, "What are you talking about? You're just being silly. There's nothing to this." And he says, "No, there's bad." And he goes, "Well, then prove that you're here." The mother's like, "Prove that you're here, that you even exist." And they started shaking the table and the cupboards, and they all kind of freaked out. And then the kid said, the old man said that there's an animal trapped in the house, and he's scratching on the door. He wants out. And they thought, well, that's a weird sound, or weird thing to say. They went back to the house. They found scratch marks on the door, and they both were like, okay, you know what? This is enough. Let's not move into this house. But they already promised their mother-in-law she could move in with them. So she pulled up and was like, what do you mean you're not going to move in? And she got mad because she gave up her apartment. And she said, well, you know what? I'm going to stay here for a while. There's no ghost here. So she moved into the rental house while they moved and stayed with their friends for a while. And I guess it got progressively worse. David had fits, and he was disjointed. His mood changed. His whole atmosphere changed no matter where he was. So they're wondering, well, maybe there's something to this, because he's constantly seeing this old man, and he talks in this weird voice. So he's obviously possessed by this old spirit or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And so they said, well, let's get a priest. They bring a priest in. A priest blesses the house, blesses the friend's house, blesses David. And he freaks out, and he says, this is pretty serious. And then the priest calls Ed and Lorraine Warren in. They interview the parents. They interview them separately. They interview the child. And they say, this is a demon. He's possessed and attached himself to the child. They said, well, can't we just move out of state? And they said, no, this will follow you no matter where you go now at this stage. It's not a haunted house. It's a haunted person. So they decided they're going to have an exorcism. And then one night, David's having fits just before he goes to bed. And it literally is punching and hitting him. And the father's there. And he challenges the demon to, leave him alone. Take on me if you want to take on someone. And they said his demeanor sort of changed for a moment right after he said that. And then it calmed down. He went outside, got into his car, and his car almost backed into a tree, and he saw this demon in front of his car with horns. And then it vanished, and he told Ed and Lorraine Warren, I saw this demon. He told the priest. They did an exorcism on the kid. Supposedly, it drove him out of the child, and that was it. And that's kind of where this story now, with Arnie as being the dad, this is where it picks up with him. Because apparently something happened, which we will discuss right now, that led to the connection to this earlier possession with his son. So go ahead and you'll probably be recapping a bit, but go ahead and start with this.
Yeah, Arnie Johnson and Debbie Glatzel, they provided first-hand accounts for the version of events that were depicted in the Discovery Channel's Haunting, where demons dwell, which is the program that you talked about. During the interview, they claimed eyewitnesses to demonic possession, and both were adamant in their support of the Warrens' collection of events. They asserted that paranormal activity began after they went to clean up their rental property that they just acquired. David recollected that an old man appeared pushing and terrifying him. The couple initially thought that David was using the old man as an excuse to avoid cleaning, but David informed them that the old man had vowed to harm the Glatzels, that if they moved into the rental home, he was going to hurt them. So David's visions of the old man included the man appearing as a demonic beast who muttered Latin and threatened to steal his soul. And although the family allegedly heard strange noises coming from the attic, no one but David ever witnessed the old man. After David experienced night terrors, exhibited strange behavior, and obtained unexplained scratches and bruises, the family finally called upon the services of a Catholic priest who attempted to bless the house. The terrified family concluded that the house was evil and would no longer continue to rent it. So David's visions worsened, occurring in the daytime as well. And 12 days after the original incident, the family summoned the Ed and Lorraine Warren to assist them. And Lorraine allegedly witnessed a black mist materialize next to David. An apparent indication of a evil presence next to him. So Debbie and her mother told the Warrens that they'd seen David being beaten and choked by invisible hands, and that red marks had appeared on his neck afterwards. And David had started to growl and hiss and speak in otherworldly voices and recite passages from the Bible or Paradise Lost. and the Gladsels recounted how each night a family member would remain awake with David as he suffered through spasms and convulsions. After receiving a prognosis of multiple possessions from the Warrens, David was subject to 3 lesser exorcisms. Lorraine asserts that David levitated, he ceased breathing for a time, and even demonstrated a supernatural ability of precognition, specifically in relation to the murder that Johnson would later commit.
And that's the story that we'll go into after this.
Right. And in October 1980, the Warrens contacted Brookfield police to warn them that the situation was becoming dangerous. So it was becoming dangerous enough for them to actually call the police.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, according to eyewitness testimony, Arne Johnson coerced one of the demons who were within David to possess him while participating in David's exorcisms. It is here that a haunting veers away from the circumstances of Johnson's possession as described by those involved. So according to the show, a few days after Johnson egged the demon on during the exorcism, he was attacked rather viciously by the demon, which took control of his car and forced it into a tree. Fortunately, Johnson was unharmed. After this incident, Johnson returned to the rental property to examine an old well that supposedly housed the demon. In both the dramatized version and his personal account, Johnson recollects that this was his final encounter with the demon while completely lucid, as it was after encountering the demon at the well and making eye contact with it that he became possessed. And the Warrens claimed to warn him not to do this, although their warning was not mentioned in the show. So as David's condition continued to worsen, Debbie and Johnson decided that it was time to move out of their mother's home. So Debbie was hired by Alan Bono, a new resident in Brookfield, as a dog groomer. And Debbie and Johnson began renting an apartment close to her place of employment. And after moving in, Johnson he started to exhibit odd behavior that was strikingly similar to David's, causing Debbie to fear that he'd become possessed as well. So according to Debbie, Johnson would fall into a trance-like state where he would growl and hallucinate, but later have no memory of it.
On February 16th, 1981, Arne Johnson called in sick to his job at the Wright Tree Service and joined Debbie at the kennel where she worked along with his sister Wanda and Debbie's 9-year-old cousin Mary Bono. The couple's landlord and Debbie's employer at the kennel bought the group lunch at a local bar and proceeded to drink heavily. After lunch, the group returned to the kennel. Debbie then took the girls to get pizza but insisted they return quickly, anticipating trouble. When they returned, Bono, intoxicated at this point, became agitated. Everyone left the room at Debbie's urging, except Bono, who seized Mary and refused to let go. Johnson headed back to the apartment and ordered Bono to release Mary. Wanda recounted the following events to the police. Mary ran for the car as Debbie attempted to mitigate the situation by standing between the two men. Wanda tried in vain to pull Johnson away. Johnson, growling like an animal, then drew a 5-inch pocket knife and stabbed Bono repeatedly. Bono died several hours later, according to Johnson's lawyer. Bono suffered from 4 or 5 tremendous wounds, mostly to the chest, and ones that stretched from his stomach to the base of his heart. Johnson was also discovered 2 miles from the site of the murder and was held at the Bridgeport Correctional Center on bail for $125,000. This was the first murder in the history of Brookfield, Connecticut. Now, the day after the murder, Lorraine Warren informed the Brookfield police that Johnson was possessed when the crime was committed. A media blitz soon surrounded the story, fueled in part by the Warrens, whose agents promised that lectures, a book, and even a movie detailing the gruesome case were in the works. Martin Minella, Johnson's lawyer, received calls all over the world about being called Demon Murder Trial. Minella traveled to England to meet with lawyers who had been involved in 2 similar cases. Neither went to trial. He planned to fly an exorcism specialist from Europe and threatened to subpoena the priests who oversaw David Glatzel's exorcisms if they did not cooperate with the defense. Now, the trial took place in Connecticut Superior Court in Danbury, beginning in October 28, 1981. Minella attempted to submit a plea of not guilty by virtue of possession, but the presiding judge, Robert Callahan, promptly rejected the defense. Callahan argued that no such defense could ever exist in a court of law due to lack of evidence, and that it would be irrelative and unscientific to allow related testimony. The defense chose to imply that Johnson acted in self-defense. Because of this, the jury was not legally allowed to consider demonic possession as a viable explanation for murder. The jury deliberated for 15 hours over 3 days before convicting Johnson on November 24th, 1981 of first-degree manslaughter. He was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, though he only served 5.
The incident led to a creation of a television film titled The Demon Murder Case on NBC, and the preparations for a feature film, the production of which was stalled due to internal conflicts. In 1983, Gerald Brittle, with the assistance of Lorraine Warren, published a book about the incidents entitled The Devil in Connecticut. Lorraine Warren stated that profits from the book were shared with the family. Sources confirmed that $2,000 was paid to the family by the book publisher. Upon the book's republication in 2006 by iUniverse, David Glatzel and his brother Carl Glatzel Jr. sued the authors and book publishers for violating their right to privacy, libel, and intentional affliction of emotional distress. Carl also claimed that the book alleged that he committed criminal and abusive acts against his family and others. He said that the possession story was a hoax concocted by Ed and Lorraine Warren to exploit the family and his brother's mental illness, and that the book presented him as the villain because he did not believe in the supernatural claims. He asserted that the Warrens told him that the story would make the family millionaires and would help get Johnson out of jail. According to Carl Glatzel, the publicity generated by the incident forced him to drop out of school and lose friends and business opportunities. So he's currently writing a book titled Alone Through the Valley about his version of the events surrounding his brother. Lorraine Warren defended her work with the family, saying that the 6 priests who were involved in the incident agreed at the time that the boy was possessed and that the supernatural events that she described were real. Brittle, author of The Devil in Connecticut, says that he wrote the book because the family wanted the story told, and that he possesses video of over 100 hours of his interviews with the family, and that they signed off on the book as accurate before it went to print. Glatzel's father, Carl Glatzel Sr., denies telling the author that his son was possessed. Johnson and Debbie, now married, wholeheartedly support the Warrens' account of demonic possession and have stated that the Glatzels in question are suing simply for monetary purposes. The event inspired the premise of the 2020 film, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It.
So the trial, which is obviously known as the Devil Made Me Do It case, is the first case in the United States where the defense sought to prove the innocence based on the defendant's claim of demonic possession and denial of personal responsibility for the crime. It's interesting that, remember, we keep finding these cases where the Warrens are connected, where they seem to ramp up stuff to support what they're doing. It makes me wonder if, they cry demon, it's a demon, it's the devil himself. Go along with what we say, you'll be millionaires. You got to wonder if their intentions are good, but they're realizing they're becoming famous and making money off this stuff, and that's not, trying to influence the people who are involved and getting them, push it up, amp it up. You'll make more money. You'll pay for his bail money. So it just makes me really question the Warrens' validity to an extent.
Yeah.
I think they started out with good intentions, but I think they realized, we're making money, we're making a career off of this, and of course you want to keep your cow happy, your cash cow. So every case you get is the worst. It's the most worst you've ever seen, and everybody needs to pay attention, and you're going to save them all, and this is what you have to do, and it gets more and more attention and media frenzy, and they make more money off it in the end, because obviously the book rights, they wanted the book rights, they gave some money to the family, but it just seems a little shady to me.
I think Ed and Lorraine Warren have good intentions, but I think a lot of people have been skeptical about them before with some of their cases.
Well, it just seems they like to heighten everything a little more than it really is. Everything's a demon. Everything's evil. It's always the demon. It's always the devil. It's always let's bring in and do an exorcism. They always kind of go to these tricks that I think get the most attention for them. Is what happens.
Yeah, and they don't realize that there's a whole family and a life behind all of that that just needs help
Hmm.
and that just doesn't want to be reminded that it could be something more than it really is.
Exactly, and it's interesting that. Well, I mean, it's not surprising that the next Conjuring movie is based on this case because it is one of their cases. So it isn't surprising to me that it's the basis of the next movie. But now they have to deal with the fact that Ed and Lorraine are dead, but the people who are alive are the people who are involved in the movie or the original case. So they're battling because the Warrens say this happened, the real people are saying, well, no, this happened, and now they're making a movie that they have to sign off on the rights for all the people involved too. So it must have been a nightmare to work through, I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the fact that they're writing their own version of what happened in this book,
Yeah.
and they were angry about it, but they have to sign papers. Don't they have to sign papers and get them to state that everything actually did happen in the book before they, I mean, so that they don't get angry? Or
Well, I mean, they can. All they have to do is sign off and say, "You sign here. You agree that we can make a movie based on your incidents that you people claimed happened. We can take for any creative liberties with whatever we want as it's a movie, and you get paid a certain amount, but you have to sign here, giving us the ability legally to do that, and you won't sue us." That's pretty much what they have to sign. So they'll make money off of it. Guarantee you, these people, no matter what their book comes out and says, they'll make money off the movie probably more than they will the book. But it will help sell the book.
That's true. Now let's get to a technical part of this. Okay, you and I have investigated places. We've been to enough places where we've actually seen and witnessed some things that that are, if we told them to a witness, they wouldn't believe it, but we were there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this kid very likely might have experienced some disturbing events in that house. How did it go from being a disturbing event where they don't want to move in to being something more extreme? How does it go from here to there?
Well, you got to remember when they were starting to move in is when they had the experience and attached himself to the kids. So no matter where the kid was, he still had the problems. He still saw them. He still talked to the old man. So it was attached to him physically.
So he was very young and he was very vulnerable. Yeah.
I'm talking 7, 8, maybe 9. So it like, and Lorraine Warren's correct in that it's not a haunted house. It's obviously a haunted person. It's attached them to the person. The old man is attached to him. Now, whether that's the same demon in the well, is it the old man is the demon? That's the part I don't understand. Is which is it? Is it the demon that lives in the well behind the rental property? Is it the old man? Is the old man the demon? Is the old man just someone who died who lived there who, doesn't want to leave the house? It's kind of hard and fuzzy there.
How about a little bit of both? There was an older man who was there who had some disturbing events, and disturbing events were was that the place had some spirits hanging around that were negative and who made things actually worse than they were. Could be both.
Yeah, it could be a combination. Who knows what happened to the old man, or if there was an old man who lived there before that.
I'm surprised they didn't investigate the background of the former owners.
They might for the movie, and you never know that these people's new book, they might actually investigate further to the history of the house before they try to move in.
That's true. I mean, that would be the first thing I would do if I saw something weird happening in my house.
I mean, the well, it's an old stone. It's like a hole in the ground, and has a little, like someone put rocks around it. It's obviously a stone rock well. It's made out of rocks. So someone dug a hole and pounded the stones into the hole to make the well. So it's not like a cement well. It's rocks. It goes down a ways, and you can see it in the brush in the TV show. I'm sure the movie will do the exact same thing. They'll have a well.
Aren't a lot of old wells made that way? So the well must have been from a considerable decade or year.
Yeah, really old. Exactly, because it's made out of stone. So. I'll be curious to see how the movie portrays it. I'm sure they'll play up the demon that he saw. It's just weird how they have a different version than the Warrens do, and they're kind of stuck. The movie's kind of stuck because if they're doing, this is the third Conjuring movie based on Ed and Lorraine Warren's case files. So are they going to be faithful to Ed and Lorraine? Are they going to be faithful to the actual case? Or are they going to fall somewhere in the middle or go do their own thing? It's going to be interesting to see where they go.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Yeah. Yeah. Now, what about you? If you moved in a place like that, would you move out right away, or would you stick it out and see what happens?
Most people would probably. I mean, they didn't buy the house, so the fact that they were just moving in means they don't really have an obligation. They're not going to lose much. If you bought the house, you'd probably move in and still say, you know what, we're going to stick this out and see if this isn't just nothing. But the fact that it's a rental property, they're able to move out. I don't know. I'd probably still stick around even if it was a rental property. Just because I'd be like, I already got everything's packed. Moving costs money, man. No matter where
moving does cost money, and for you, I believe that you're stoic enough to withstand something like that more than a child would.
I mean, I would document it. I would start documenting everything, like things that are being said, little things that happened on a daily basis. Set up cameras. Who knows?
But they didn't set up cameras or video footage of this, didn't they, back then?
No,
because
they
most
weren't
people
into
didn't.
They really weren't. I mean, this would be the late 70s probably. If he went to jail in 81 for killing his wife's boss in 81, so this stuff must have happened in like 77, 78. Again, this is not long after the Amityville Horror.
Right.
So Ed and Lorraine Warren, let's pump up those demons, get more attention.
Yeah. Well,
So-
I would have thought that that with most people investigating a case like that, they would need a certain criteria in order for them to actually go to the place. So
Yeah, I mean, they obviously have, if they have enough contacts in the Catholic Church who bless houses, regardless of the people didn't seem that they were Catholic or any kind of denomination, but the fact that it was a Catholic priest that came out, did the exorcism, blessed the house, and of course they called Ed and Lorraine in. So as long as Ed and Lorraine have enough priests on the East Coast, contacts, they're going to bring them in. So, and they probably brought them in back then. You know, not hardly anybody did this kind of stuff. They thought, you know what, it can't hurt to bring them in and get their opinion. And of course,
now there are people you can call to do this stuff. We've interviewed a few people who do cases like this.
Exactly. So they were kind of pioneers. I just wonder how much was real and how much was sensationalized.
Right. I wish they were around to interview, but honestly,
Yeah, I would love to do that.
I would love to do that. Yeah, but
But that mystery is going to stay in the void.
right, unless we interview the family or talk to them, and if the family's listening, we'd love to interview you.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to get Arnie on if he would come on just to talk about it.
Yeah, if he's open, so are we.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
So-
there you go, folks. The Conjuring 3, the true story.
Yes.
A little early because the movie hasn't come out yet, but I'm assuming it comes out in the fall during Halloween, I imagine.
Yeah, and watch out for it. And I'd like to go see it
Yep.
now that we've investigated, talked about this case.
Yep.
So,
Just to
okay,
see. All
that's
right.
another episode. Yeah.
All right, folks. Until next week, we will talk to you again.
Talk to you again. Bye.
Royalty-free, copyright-free music by Kevin MacLeod and Ross Bugden.